Hello, friends. This is support video number one for anyone going through the dark night process, or in the yoga tradition called pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses, or anyone experiencing a midlife crisis, anyone who has come to a sort of disillusionment with things or the world or identity that used to satisfy and no longer does. For anyone in the group right now in March 2019, right after I introduced us to the understanding and experience of Lent in the Christian world before Easter. And I invited you into an experiential and transformative version of that rather than just giving up chocolate for 40 days and then eating chocolate again afterwards. By the way, you will probably come to see that if you do choose to give something up, that's a sort of habit like that at the end of 40 days or after a certain season of time, you either don't want it anymore or you get it back again with a completely brand new relationship with it and can actually enjoy it in a transformed and liberated and more full and rich sense. So in any case, this is support video number one. I plan to send you guys one per week while we're doing this Lenten Dark Night transformative observance. And at the same time, I plan to put it on the website just to be up there indefinitely with the label like support video number one for the Dark Night. So whether or not you're in the group, whether or not it's Lent, doesn't matter. This is a template that can happen anytime. First, I'd like to say today that everything we're doing in the group, on the website, in my books, everything that I teach, and especially the dark night, and approaching the dark night positively, excitedly. When my first mentor, Jim, on this particular leg of the journey, I had mentors before, but my first one on this particular leg of the journey, Jim, met me right as the dark night was dawning for me. Very intense period of my life, which I shared with you guys on Sunday. I won't tell the story again now, but I'll share it again for anybody who missed it. Just ask me. It's a part of my life. And as I said, Frederick Buechner likes to say that all theology, or insert spiritual teaching, is at heart autobiography. So everything that I teach, as I've said before, not only is the organic outgrowth of my own ingrowth. What has worked for me, and I just want to share it with you, and you find how it works for you. But also, if you listen carefully, I don't have to tell my story and the details of what happened in the past, though that's interesting enough, for you to get to know who I am, where I've been, what I care about, what I believe in, what's important to me, and indeed my autobiography, because it's all just coming out of my pores. So Jim told me, oh, yeah, you're beginning the dark night process. And it's a process, and it's a thing, and it's a template. It's a psycho spiritual time of life, cycle, and tool if you know how to use it. On the other side of which is freedom, liberation, transformation, true non attachment, which is in all the traditions, and at the same time, the ability to hold what you were previously attached to, which was causing suffering, in a brand new way, in a whole new light, with transformed appreciation and experience. So none of this is sterile. In fact, John of the Cross, who I have here, I pointed to him before, he's usually up here. This is a legitimate relic. It's a piece of his bone. And I have the document around here somewhere. It's sealed and verified and certified by the Vatican. I can't get this off right now, but there's a seal of wax, and I have a certificate and everything that says since I believe, 14th or 15th century, he lived in Spain, that this was passed down as legitimate. So this can be seen as a very magic level superstition. There are some relic collectors out there, and it's become it's fraudulent. They fake things, and it's black market and sell it for way too much and all this kind of stuff. And that, oh, it's a magical, superstitious thing, just like carrying rocks in your pocket or something like that. But from a higher stage of understanding, from a holographic level, in fact, this does still carry Saint John of the Cross, or in Spanish, Juan de la Cruz, you may have heard it like that, his DNA. And therefore, if the whole is contained in the part, then all of John of the Cross is here in physical form. Pretty cool. He's one of my heroes. In fact, when I went through the Catholic process and became Catholic from the Baptist background that I had, that's another story altogether as to why I did that and what it meant to me. I had already been baptized, so I didn't get baptized again, but I got confirmed as a Catholic. And when you get confirmed, you have a confirmation name. The name I got confirmed as was John, Saint John. And there's tons of Johns in the tradition, in the Bible, but the John for me was John of the Cross. So, Saint John of the Cross and the dark night of the soul is most certainly in the Kalyana container, and is most certainly in my bones, no pun intended, as an amazingly beautiful and potent period of transformation. This also is a picture that a friend of mine gave me, which is the view out of the hermitage. And as I understand it, it's kind of like a cave, but it's not, I don't think it's primitive, but it's kind of a medieval cave or hermitage of John of the Cross. This is where he lived. So before you read John of the Cross, some people have the interpretation automatically that it's really kind of heavy. John of the Cross, the dark night of the soul. But in fact, stories have it that he was one of the most jubilant and joyful and playful and even childlike, wise masters in his community. He loved to kind of break the rules and take the brothers out on a hike under the stars. He loved to talk about God or the beloved in a kind of romantic, even erotic kind of way. And his experience with union with God or the divine or the second person other was incredibly intimate. So those of you who say, or are afraid of what you might have to let go of through the dark night process is incredibly excruciating. But on the other side is freedom, joy, all the fruits of the Spirit that we've said before. But it helps if you know what's coming, what to expect, and how to work with it. So when Jim first told me, oh, this is the dark night that's happening to you, here's a book. I was so excited that it was a thing, that I wasn't alone, and that there was promise of something even better on the other side of it. So I dove right in. And again, I won't tell the details of the story right now, but in John's Dark Night treatise, there are actually two nights that he says you should consider it a joy, a privilege, an honor when it happens, because he has kind of an outdated language a little bit, but he says, like, because God has called you to the next advanced stage of the journey. So consider it as like you're training for a triathlon or this free solo movie, which is ridiculous on Hulu, which covers rock climbing without ropes, 3,000 feet up. So consider it that your coach or your guide is calling you to another level of advancement. St. Paul in the New Testament may have known something about this when he says, consider it a joy when you experience persecutions of any kind. And on Sunday, one of you were like, what is that persecutions word? Yeah, hardships, difficulty, trials. So I was excited and I wanted to know all there was to know about the Dark Night and how I could get through it. Because as I've told you guys, I have had this kind of parallel mode my whole life since I was a kid of kind of the divine spark turning into a flame and a roaring blaze, wanting to return to God, just as natural to me as breathing. So I knew that this must be part of that as well. Because the dark night also burns away everything that is not God, or everything that is not you. If you want to say it that way in a first person term, that's fine. Everything that is not truth, the dark night burns it away. But it does burn it away, and it is intense to the degree with which you don't cooperate. Especially if it's inevitable. Not like if you don't cooperate to give up smoking over Lent. I'm saying when the hologram or God or the universe has started to pry your hands and you resist, that's the degree with which you will experience even more intensity and suffering, especially if it's inevitable, this crucible. So I had that parallel with intense suffering, particularly mental suffering, as many of you know, that required me to live an interior life of introspection, meditation, mindfulness, presence since I was a child. And that also propelled me to know there must be something more. There must be something more. There must be something more. Any chance I got and still get to do my practice, to cultivate, to grow, to transform, to heal, and to get back to God or to myself. Those words are interchangeable, kind of. I'll leave it at that for now. So, what I do want to repeat are the three main lessons that I very quickly and intuitively learned when Jim was kind of guiding me, holding my hand into the dark night, recognizing I was already there. The dawn of the dark night. I like that. And assisting me into it. And it was, kind of assisting me into the arms of God, assisting me further along into the process that takes care of itself. It helps when you have support and people who understand. That's why we're doing this together. That's why I'm here to answer questions and to give support as well, because I understand. I've been through it. I know it in and out. John is here to help too. But in any case, along with that, I discovered meditation. I discovered yoga all in the same period. I discovered Eckhart Tolle talking about the present moment and the ego. I discovered Father Thomas Keating talking about emotional programs for happiness that don't work. I discovered this Christian contemplative world of union with God. I discovered Autobiography of a Yogi and Thich Nhat Hanh, all of which were breaking me out of my mere Christian worldview. Before I even discovered Ken, which taught me to transcend and include, that's what I was doing. So John talks about two phases of the dark night that usually happen kind of linearly, one after the other. Dark night of sense and then dark night of spirit. So dark night of sense is where things of the world are no longer satisfying or are no longer working. Dark night of spirit is where spiritual things or things of God are no longer working or no longer satisfying. And usually you graduate kind of to the dark night of spirit. And then after that, graduate to union with the beloved. And then bringing back our rich young ruler story with Jesus, you get your treasure in heaven. And you may or may not receive some of the things that you used to have, but it either no longer matters or they're transformed before your very eyes. You experience them as they should be experienced in the first place. So for me, both of those, I guess I consider it a joy. I do actually consider it a blessing that they both descended at once. I had a devastating kind of breakup with a girlfriend and simultaneously a devastating breakup with my former understanding of God. And devastating, I actually don't know the etymology of that word, but it doesn't necessarily mean bad. It just means like, whoom, to the ground. I've been, whoom, devastated. Where you have nothing else to rely on that wasn't giving you true security or happiness or identity anyway. It's kind of a false sense. So, all of this, as I started this entire video by saying, you have to find some value in it in order to do it because it's so countercultural, counter conditioning, and it verges on counterintuitive. In a deeply intuitive way, there's an undercurrent that knows it's good. Everything else is fighting, holding on for dear life. But it verges on counterintuitive because we're so merged with our biology and psychology and sociology and anything that the system reads and interprets as fearful, uncomfortable, whether heavily conditioned or not, just like, ooh, that hurt. The quote unquote intuition doesn't like that. So, this whole spiritual endeavor of being human, I actually call it transbiological, transpsychological. Transpersonal. And you have to find value in it by your very nature, or your hand has kind of been forced and you're brought to it. You have no choice. So it's up to you and not up to you. And I offer, as always, just kind of a smattering and would, of course, love if you take it to the depth that I do, that has been inevitable for me my whole life. Go for the jugular, because I promise you there's something better on the other side, even if you're happy now. It's relative happiness, and it's laced with the opposite. We're talking about transcending to something greater that also includes both without the sting of duality. But I'm inviting you to a practice to actually implement it. It's not just Christian either. Like I said, in yoga, it's called pratyahara. And I won't get into the specifics of that, but it's a direct correlation. It's a gateway before getting to the higher stages of contemplation, meditation, and enlightenment, aka samadhi. Right there in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. It's the dark night of the soul. So I hesitate to use the word lessons, but the truths that I learned in those very early stages of dark night, Jim's guidance, the devastation, and discovering meditation, yoga, and these other authors and teachers and traditions were that I had been relying on things that can change or that can be taken away for my happiness / fulfillment, my identity / who I was, or the meaning of life, and future expectation or purpose. Happiness in things that can be taken away, identity as a self or in a role that's relative or conditioned or can change, and future expectations regarding something that's not certain, like the future is for all of us. But I had no idea that I had been doing all of that, even though I've been on this kind of God journey for many years. I didn't realize those things were things. And so when I could no longer reach and grab and attach to those things anymore, and they included emotions, ideas, philosophies, feelings, thoughts, actions, lifestyle, personality, they just weren't there anymore. And it was devastating and liberating because I used it as an opportunity. Every time I would feel the mechanism reach for like, yeah, but I still have this thing, and it wasn't there, then it dropped me back into myself. Or if I saw my mechanism reaching for something that was there, I would recognize, I'm doing it again. Don't do it. Drop back into myself. Now, these 3 lessons, there's kind of a fork in the road. Happen to a lot of people in midlife crisis, in breakups when the kids grow up, in losing your job, in all sorts of things. And down one side of the fork in the road is bitterness, despair, loneliness, anger, resentment. I don't need anybody anyway. The ego can confiscate anything and will. Father Thomas said the ego, or I think he calls it the false self, will change costumes as many times as it takes, as long as you don't take the costume off. As long as you don't finally tell it to get lost, it'll gladly change disguises to continue existing in the shadows. So I could have, and some of you are already kind of projecting down that path. What Kemper's telling me to do, it's a little shaky. I mean, yeah, I understand this earthly treasure thing is like not really satisfying ultimately, but yeah, it is relatively satisfying. And I wonder if keeping it, even if it stings a little bit in the darker aspect of it, it's better than giving it up completely. That's because you're already projecting down that path, because that's the path that the world leads you down. Nobody has ever invited you down this other path. I am. John is. Jesus is. The story of the rich young ruler. So nothing can make me happy can become depressing or enlightening. Therefore, I turned up the volume and set my sights and changed my search to finding happiness in something that doesn't change. So sometimes if you go down the path of despair, it's either just despair and drugs and alcohol and depression, and then pharmaceuticals and whatever else. You know that one thing is not there anymore that you were relying on for happiness, but you find other things that try to fill the void or try to take the place, and they don't work either. Or even recognizing you're not living a healthy lifestyle and then thinking that just a healthy lifestyle is going to fill the void. That's a good place to start. It's better than the alternative, but that's not even what I'm talking about. So I started my search down the road of find happiness or fulfillment in something that can't change. And I have found that. Find meaning in something that's not conditional. Find a relationship with time that's not dependent on the future, because it doesn't exist anyway, ultimately. Find a connection with myself on a level that's not the personality only. Find union with God that's not an idea or a magic mythic version or an object amongst other objects. God beyond God. And I did that. I found that. So, where I invited you guys on Sunday to think of the earthly treasure that you want to surrender, at least for 40 days. And I said, my invitation, when you recognize the pattern of when you reach for it, and some of you are already recognizing that it's not about the thing anyway. It's not about cookies. It's not about chocolate. It's not about marijuana. It's about what that thing is trying to cover up, what that thing is trying to give you, what false sense of security or identity or happiness it's tempting you with. And again, blissful ignorance is a path that many are walking. Jesus says, wide is the road that leads to destruction, and many there are who find it. Narrow is the path that leads to life, and few there are walking it. So I think this way, in this holographic simulation, at least in this cycle of it, this era, this age, this yuga, it's always the narrow path. It's always the minority. But you have found me. You have found this work. And so now I'm giving you this information and you have to do something with it because something deep inside of you wanted it and led you here. I'm not going to force your hand. As I say, And as Christy and I say, time is of the essence. Time is now. But take your time. I'm here to support, encourage, prod you along, show you a mirror reflection of yourself. But life or God or the universe has brought you here for a reason. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's already happened. Maybe you're already in the dark night, didn't know it. Now I'm telling you, and that's going to be the game changer. Maybe you're ready for something different, ready for something new. So you try it out. You try a few little habitual patterns, investigate what's beneath the surface, and the dark night gets induced. Maybe you go for the jugular for your identity itself. So in any case, what I told you guys was whatever it is, when you recognize reaching for it, don't. Observe what's coming up. And don't then reach for something else, either as another distraction or even if you want to start changing some like dietary habits or something like that, that's great. I would encourage that, or lifestyle habits, but don't let that quote unquote better lifestyle habit be what you do for this practice in the place of the unhealthy thing. It's even deeper than that. Hope I'm coming across here. So in the moment of it, I always suggest do nothing. Feel yourself reach, drop back into yourself. I remember the feeling of dropping down and down and down and down and back and back and back, in and in and in. No, I can't even reach for that. Can't even reach for that. Don't even want to reach for that anymore. Don't even want to reach for that anymore. That's been taken away. That's not here anymore. Boom, 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 boom. And it felt so familiar and easy once you get the hang of it, and rewarding in and of itself. And also one of the most challenging things I've ever done, because it also required rewiring and reconditioning, seeing with new eyes. But it's the true intelligence of this place, of God, that is benevolent, and at the same time a compassionate and relentless teacher. Which means wants you to heal, but not surface level healing, not just a band-aid. But we don't like surface level healing in our world. Excuse me, we don't like true healing in our world. We want to keep it surface. And we want someone else to do it for us. So this is a new way that maybe you've intuited, but have never quite stepped on the path up, and here I am inviting you. One thing I did want to emphasize is that in the doing nothing, not reaching for something better or healthier, because that in itself can be cloaked by the ego too, just another thing to fill the void when no thing can fill the void. First, it starts theoretical, philosophical. What could possibly be, Soren Kierkegaard calls it a dialectic. Here we have a dialectic, like something to think about, something to work through. What could possibly be happiness in something that can't change? Just that kind of triggers an interior space. What could possibly be a relationship with time that doesn't rely on the future? present moment. What could possibly be my identity with something that's not a role or personality? In a world that's like, be yourself, be yourself, be unique. That's great. That's not what we're talking about here. I even invited you guys on Sunday to really explore and get to know your personality. But we're talking about this whole other path here. Yourself beyond yourself, beyond yourself. God beyond God, beyond God, beyond thoughts, beyond ideas, beyond form, beyond this world. Then you get the world back in the way it was intended. Remember, it doesn't disappear. You don't float away. But it's infused with this transformed consciousness, perspective, and light and lightness. And the crux of it might last a few weeks, few months, a year, a couple years. It's customized for you. And the crux of it, it's kind of like getting chicken pox. Only happens once. Then you get good at layers of it and waves of it. As they come, you learn how to work with it. Oh, here's a little dark night thing I'm going through. I know what to do with this. So I would strongly encourage you during this Lenten period. And if you're watching this video after Lent and you're maybe not a part of the Sunday group or whatever, try it for 40 days. Start now. Start today. Also, if you think, it's just not a good time right now, it's probably the best time. Because that'll be the ego saying, yeah, once I'm not so busy, I can focus on this. No, or it will plunge you into it even further without your permission. So these things, you knew they weren't working anyway. They're already causing subtle or profound suffering. So why not try it? But try it with eyes wide open, with support, talking to me, reading Dark Night of the Soul, reading my book or books, because I got another one coming out. Watch my videos. And like I did during the dark night and coming off of my medication, increase your practice of the 5 basics. So all these 5 basics intertwine. Working on the relative self, if you're doing it in the way that I'm asking you to, automatically works on the ultimate self. Working on the shadow automatically helps you discover who you are and who you are not. Meditating automatically activates the interior domain. So as long as these themselves don't become that other quote unquote better lifestyle that's attempting to fill a void, paradoxically, I would invite you to meditate more, do the ultimates more. By the time I've posted this video, I will have put the ultimate koans up on the website. In this moment, I've not done that yet, but I want to give that to you again as a tool. There are like 30 of them now, so that's almost 40, almost one per day. You can take one per day, not as a mantra, not as an affirmation. Remember, a koan trips you into a different state of awareness or plants seeds in the already open and cultivated state of that awareness of that state. So those are the koans for the ultimate. When I say tune into the ultimate, use those koans. They're pretty good for now. meditate more, journal, record it, because not only recording it, but also for me, that's been a processing tool. And it makes the one you perceive to be the one suffering automatically an object in your awareness of a greater subject. When you say I on the page of journaling, it's already not you because it's someone that you're talking about. And that also works on the relative self, the ultimate self, the who am I, the shadow. So journal during this time. Not to perpetuate a story. Don't ever journal in order just to complain. Venting is fine, but with the purpose and the intention of coming out of it, to write yourself free. That's what it's been for me. Write yourself free. John of the Cross says, in the dark night, you are the safest you've ever been because it's not up to you anymore. Paradoxically, it requires your cooperation. So while I say get to know the pattern, the reaching, and don't, and maybe you can't even reach anymore, it's already been taken away from you. Drop back into yourself. Do nothing. Don't reach for the next thing, even if it's perceived as better. But at the same time, you can go sit. You can go journal. You can just feel what's coming up in the absence of that thing. Or maybe you're kind of tiptoeing into it yourself and you're like, no more cookies before bedtime. Not as a behavioristic punishment, but because you already knew that the cookies were trying to drown out loneliness or some craving that they never satisfied anyway. They only satisfied your tongue and probably don't even feel good in your stomach. So you sit alone in that aloneness. You don't go turn the phone on. You don't go turn the TV on. You sit and trust and feel and don't run away, and also don't white knuckle. If you need to do yoga or meditate instead, or journal, or go for a walk, that's okay to kind of massage it out. So neither white knuckling, which does nothing anyway, nor reaching for a quote unquote healthy thing. Well, I'll just have like a healthy snack before bedtime. That's one way you can do it, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's not the Kalyana container, because that's just going to cover up the aloneness again. But maybe increase your meditation time, increase your meditation frequency, have these koans kind of in your psyche or one per day in your pocket, journal, talk it out. Jim, that was one thing, that was an exact phrase he used to say to me, talk it out. And I had him to kind of reflect back and to share with. So I'm here for you. No more excuses. Money's not an excuse either. Private sessions are available. Email behind the scenes. Watch videos, read, watch Muji. Read Dark Night of the Soul, Mirabai Star's translation. That's kind of the only one I recommend. She's a brilliant person and writer and translator. And you'll come through and see what I mean. Currently, what's your happiness bound up in? It's usually some kind of false sense or a lie anyway. Is it the ever elusive future? What's your identity bound up in, and then thus probably your happiness? What's your meaning or purpose bound up in? You have to become empty of all of these things. And then, spoiler alert, emptiness, after emptying out your cup, emptiness itself has a capital E now. Ultimate emptiness, because no thing can fill it. And you know that. And then you will be filled again with a deeper spirit, but not on your watch. You didn't come here to this planet for your career, for your family, for your spouse. To get high every day, to romanticize anything. You came here to be liberated. So this invitation, this practice, this path finds you right where you are. You're not too busy for it. You don't have too many things going on for it. You don't have too many important responsibilities for it. You know the things you have to still take care of without letting them dictate your life during this time. Again, the world doesn't disappear. It's where you place your intention, your focus, your identity, your center of gravity. And I would recommend to increase, especially because you've now found value in your meditation practice and the other 5 basics, the other 4 basics. There's a possible period, which again happened for me at the beginning, and which John of the Cross usually says happens like later, that kind of it's a deeper drying out and purging of attachment even to spiritual things. So that's why I'm telling you here at the beginning, don't reach for like a healthier snack, but don't reach for anything. It's very thin and subtle, paradoxical. But turn toward your spiritual practice. Then if your spiritual practice itself becomes something you're reaching for to fill the same void, it's a deeper layer, and it's better than reaching for something else. But at the same time, if you're called to the next advanced stage of practice and realization and rock climbing, then you'll be asked to give that up too, or you can willingly do it as well. It's a paradox, guys. It's possible that meditation practice eventually comes up dry. Not now at the beginning. Don't, no. For some of you, I can already hear you saying, yeah, it's already happening to me. If you think that's the case, come talk to me and I'll verify. Just because you get frustrated in your practice sometimes, especially if you've just now started to meditate, that's not the same as the deeper drying out of the dark night of the spirit. It's after years of being on the journey. Because I had been on the journey for years before I discovered yoga and meditation. I can fill in the gaps of that story later if you need me to. In any case, the journey is underway. All you have to do is say yes, really, and put in the work. And I want to remind you again, God loves you, just as always. This place is wicked and at the same time benevolent, beautiful, gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, and perfect. Please check in as needed. Reach out. And stay tuned for support video number 2 during this process. I love you guys. Namaste.